Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Andrew Yang winning every generation, an approach I think he should adopt so that he can speak directly to every living generation, silent, boomers, X, millennials, and Zs, right? So specifically, I think in order to do this, he should really focus on being able to quickly have in his mind their achievements and their struggles, right? And once he has this, I think he should just very systematically wait and plot and plant seeds for the media to pick up, right? So where essentially, if he gets a silent in front of him, he should acknowledge that generation's achievement, right? Gets another silent in front of him, he should acknowledge their struggle, right? And there's like 10 of these, right? To go through all of these different generations and to literally kind of put on record through the media, this is their struggle, this is their achievement, right? And I think this is really critical to actually get laid out. The other thing I think is, I think Andrew Yang is smart enough to realize this. It's incredibly easy to lead the media, right? If you plant these, right, by carefully, monitoring who's in front of you, and then saying, okay, I'm gonna, plant this boomer struggle here and plant this boomer achievement here. Once this is all done, one of these smart, media outlets is going to collect up all those little clips and put them all together, right? And to me, I really think the media at the macro level is very, very easy to manipulate, and the reason why is they want views, they want clicks. They're all filled with like Harvard and Yale educated, Ivy League educated elites, coastal elites, right? And basically they're gonna track patterns. They will definitely see patterns. Like it's definitely a thing, right? So, with all that said, let's talk about the achievements of every single living generation and then the struggles of every single living generation that Andrew Yang, the seeds he should plant, right? So that he is really communicating using the media to every generation. I know what you've done, and I know what you had to get through to do it, right? And I think this is really important because I really feel that generational bracketing is incredibly important and is very, very apt and accurate, right? All right, so with that said, let's go through the achievements for each one. Well, for the silence, it's incredible what they achieved. They defeated the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis, right? So in World War II, there was an axis, Rome, Berlin, and Tokyo. Now, it's incredible to think about this, that there was a day when we were at, vicious war. This wasn't a skirmish, man. This was a vicious war. Like, it was a meat grinder. World War II was like, it saw human death at a level we've never seen before, ever, right? And so, basically, you had this situation where you really need to understand, we were at war simultaneously with the combined forces of Italy, Japan, and Germany, Now, again, that axis is Rome, Berlin, Tokyo. Today, an American can fly from Rome to Berlin, from Berlin to Rome, right over to Tokyo, be received and welcomed by every single one of those nationalities. It's incredible, right? And actually, their dollar is incredibly welcome there. And even, I would even say, it seems like Americans are even welcome there. I have a friend who just came back from Italy, told me he had a great time, he was really well received, and, actually, he said he was surprised at how well he was received. The only thing that surprised him in Italy was, he said, there was he had a good trip in Italy. I'll leave it at that, right? And so, but they defeated them, right? So the silent generation defeated the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis, which is incredible. So so if a silent were to travel to those places, they would not have the same experience that a millennial would. It would be very, very different for them. Like, even particular sites could, traumatize them. It's incredibly different. What did the boomers achieve? Well, the boomers achieved extraterrestrial travel. They took us beyond this earth. That is incredible. That is truly incredible. The boomers delivered space. They delivered the moon. They said, this planet that we live on, it is no longer a cage. We are free, right? That is truly, truly an incredible achievement. All right, what did Generation X deliver? They delivered the internet, right? The World Wide Web, specifically the internet, right? Well, I'm not even sure that www is really that important anymore. It's the internet, right? And so they delivered the internet. What we really got there was, we got the Library of Alexandria, right? We have the ability to use data in ways share data in ways that we've never been able to do that before. And the internet truly made the world a much smaller place, right? Messages that used to take days or weeks are now communicated in seconds. Zeitgeists of entire other nations are known, by other nations because of the power of the internet. It is truly, truly incredible, right? So that's what the X generation. What did the millennials deliver? The millennials delivered overwhelming abundance, right? And by the way, this is all American. All these generations, I'm talking about Americans, right? They delivered overwhelming abundance. Just one word will give you an idea of this, right? The scope of this. Think of FANG, Facebook, right? Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. Each one of those is a multi-billion-dollar company made right here in America, and each one of them now have headquarters where their employees every single day get catered lunches, catered dinners. You have multiple millionaires just walking through the halls, and also, and that's just FANG, right? That's just Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, right? And there's hundreds of other organizations that have hundreds of millions, if not billion-dollar budgets, and America is popping up millionaires like popcorn, just pop, 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 like just millionaires coming up left and right, right? In San Francisco, if you spin around and throw a rock, you're going to hit a millionaire, right? It's incredible, right? By the way, don't do that. So you can throw a metaphorical rock, but not a physical one, right? And so basically, it's just, it's really incredible, right? And then what has Z accomplished? Well, big question mark there, right? The Zs are very, very young. Like all Zs are between 1 year old and 18-year-old, right? And so the Zs they really haven't had time to accomplish anything of significant. It's not their fault, like it's not like they've been slacking off or anything. They just haven't really accomplished anything yet because they're so young, right? So what specifically is the struggles of each of these generations? And again, so with those achievements, Yang needs to have those ready in his head, right? And when he is talking to each one of these generations, he should be dropping these, right? So that the media can pick them up, right? What should be the struggles? Well, boy, let's talk about the struggles. The silent generation, they went through the Great Depression. It's, and that was an unprecedented low in American history. It was the most harshest economic period ever. And I think it even came like right after Prohibition. It was incredibly difficult. And it's one of the few times in America where people didn't have food. Like a lot of people didn't have food. Like I'll say right now, I have not really seen starvation anywhere in America in my entire lifetime. I've lived all over. I've lived in Atlanta. I've lived in Hayhira, Georgia, Racine, Wisconsin, all over America. Philadelphia. I lived in Key West, Florida. We've lived in Louisville, Kentucky. I've been all over this place, and we have definitely seen places that are struggling, right? But I have never, ever seen a place where there wasn't where you just couldn't get food, right? And that was real for them, right? And people still talk to this day that those generations, they have to have freezers full of food because they're so frightened. That generation literally has fear that comes from starvation, which is incredible. Like that really hasn't been seen in America in a very long time. What did the boomers, what was the struggle that they dealt with? Well, they saw very harsh inequality. That inequality, the harshest of it went across lines of lineage. Even in the 60s and the 70s, there were, still massive differences between the North and the South. And lineage was a major issue, right? And there was, Martin Luther King came forward, and people were really fighting for equal rights, regardless of what your lineage was. And I think that's a really, that was a struggle to see that, in that there were families that were divided over this issue. Activism was difficult. Some of those people were hit with hoses, beaten. There was some real struggle in those days, and even acknowledging that the nation needed to change, at the family level, at the church level, at the local organizational level, at the state level, and at the national level. It was a struggle. It was a true struggle, on all sides, right? And just dealing with with just decades and well over a century of hardships, and then also dealing with responsibility for having, for being aligned with people who had done those hardships. It was a very difficult struggle for that specific generation, right? What did the X generation really need to deal with? What was their primary struggle? I would say that it was the deconstruction of tradition, and specifically the tradition of marriage. I think for the X generation, marriage just shattered like glass, right? There was divorce everywhere, and it was like in the tens, hundreds of thousands of divorces, and no other generation had ever seen anything like this. It was like a tsunami of divorce. And nowadays, I think Gwyneth Paltrow, explained kind of an amicable divorce, and there's all kinds of information on Goop on how to have an amicable divorce. And nowadays, divorce is kind of on rails, right? No fault divorce dropped in, and people, smile at each other, and there's much more of an acknowledgement of how this can affect children, and so people are careful to talk their children through this. Man, the X generation, they didn't see any of that, right? It was just a massive tsunami of divorce, and very little support for the people who were going through those divorces, and especially for the kids. And I think, the X generation, many of them really went through divorce in the most difficult time, where there were so many of them happening, there really wasn't enough, I would say, love or attention for the society to give to the kids who were going through the story. It was a massive struggle, and I think you still see ramifications from that today, right? So that was the X generation. What was the struggle of the millennials? Well, the millennials really dealt with accelerating change, right? Now, that might seem like a light. It's not, right? The rate of change for millennials was so drastic, so rapid, and I think their parents, the X generation, really didn't know how to walk them through it, because essentially technology had been building. We flew in 1903. We're on the moon in 1969. Right. And when the internet kicked in, it was just, the accelerating rate of change was so rapid. It gave a lot of people intellectual whiplash, and it was very significant. And I think the millennials, they're like, oh yeah, well, I learned this and I have this new body of knowledge. How long is this body of knowledge I've attached myself going to be valuable? 2 years, 3, 5, I work in information technology, and people who are out in a company for 5 years, are like grizzled veterans, right? It's like, and my father, I think he was in his career for like 40 years, like in one place. So it's incredible. Actually, he did move around. But he was in the same career, whereas now, millennials understand that they might have 5 different jobs in 5 different entire economic segments, right? And they understand that's their future, and they can never, ever stop learning, right? The accelerating change demands intellectual rigor that has been asked for from no one else, right? Now, what is the struggle of the Z generation? Same thing here. I think there's a big question mark there. We don't know yet what their primary struggle is. We're still all, I'm blessed to, by the way, my children are millennials and Zs, and I myself am an X, right? And so, and I can tell you right now, I think we're still finding out what the achievements of the Zs will be and what the struggles of the Zs will be, right? So, once Andrew Yang has these struggles and these achievements mapped in his brain, and he just kind of salts this into conversation so that he's on record acknowledging the achievements of every generation, acknowledging that he understands the struggles of every generation. What he's trying, then at that point, what I think he'll do is he'll just ratchet the lever back, right? And call for recognition of himself from every single generation. And I think he's going to ask each generation, he should ask each generation to acknowledge him in a different way, to recognize him as a different thing, right? So from the silence, I think he should be aiming for the silence to recognize his nobility. He truly is a noble man. He really, I'm really incredibly impressed by these small rooms that he works, right? He is at the same level when he's talking to 30 people or 3,000 people, right? And that really impresses me. Like you can just see his genuine love for this nation and the hustle. Like he just works day in and day out. And it is hard. I can see, they call running for election running. He is running. This is physically and mentally debilitating, and he does not look debilitated. He is keeping himself strong and moving forward, and I really feel like there's just a nobility in him that we need to restore the presidency. And the reason why I'm saying he should call for he should be aiming so that the silence can recognize his nobility is, I think they're the ones who nobility really still matters to, right? I think nowadays, back in the 90s, America as a whole was like, you don't need to connect character to the presidency anymore. And then we just echoed that again in the aughts. We're like, character, what's that got to do with the presidency? Right? So there's 2 specific presidents. You're like, oh, character, schmaracter. Well, who cares, right? But guess what? The silents care. They know about character. They know about grit. They know about, morality, right? And attaching those things to leadership, right? They still care about that stuff, right? What should Andrew Yang try to have the boomers recognize him for? The boomers, he wants them to recognize his drive, right? His drive, that he is, the boomers were driven and just rocketed us literally and figuratively to the moon, right? And he has that drive. He is just incredibly hardworking. He's an American tech entrepreneur. He's been successful in the real world. And because he has drive, and I think he wants the boomers to recognize that he has drive. For the X generation, I think he wants them to recognize his tech savvy, right? Tech savvy, it sounds like, oh, that's not a big deal. Tech savvy, what's that matter? It matters. It matters now, right? It matters that we need. I would say President Obama was tech savvy, right? He had a portion of it, right? But what happens when you take an American tech entrepreneur and make him president? Right? That is where you can really bind technology and politics together and really do some dramatic things. If you have, cryptocurrency is incredibly arcane. We need a wizard, right? We need somebody, when you have, Bitcoin at $8,000 today, right? You need somebody who understands blockchain and cryptocurrency and what trustless distributed consensus is, right? You know, you need somebody who has that language, who can talk to the realist issues of the world right now, which really are technology, in my opinion. They are some of the realists. We still have some other issues in there. For the millennials, I think he wants them to recognize his empathy. I see this, right? I see how much he genuinely cares, right? He genuinely cares for people. He genuinely cares for the states. He genuinely cares for this nation. And I think he wants them to recognize this, right? And then last, I think he wants the Zs to recognize the opportunity he is giving for them to have a president who restores some stability in that office, right? And I know I didn't say a lot about the Zs. I think at the end of the day, Andrew Yang, he has to accomplish a whole bunch of things with all these other generations. But with the Zs, he's got to accomplish one thing, right? And maybe he can get on to, like, you know, the Nickelodeon Movie Awards or something like that. But from the Zs, he just needs one thing. He needs every Z in the nation to ask their parents, who are you voting for? You know, so that those parents understand that the Zs see what's happening in this world, and they just want to know that their parents are engaged, right? I don't think a Z has enough experience or enough wisdom to ask their parent to vote for anyone, but they certainly have enough right and wisdom to ask their parents, who are you voting for, and then listen. And I think Yang should encourage them to do that. So I'm really convinced Yang, it's important that he wins every generation, and I think he can do that by communicating to them that he knows their achievements, he knows their struggles, and aiming for them to recognize for him for what he is: noble, driven, tech-savvy, empathetic, and a huge opportunity for the Zs to restore stability to the presidency and to get this nation back on track, right? Not economically, we're already on track economically, but culturally and socially, they're important. Those are very, very important, just as important as economics. That's my take. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Did I miss anything? Do you think it is important that he tries to win every generation in these brackets as we understand them? I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.